Hi everyone. The highway code is written in a manner that leaves it up for interpretation, and this can cause problems in my opinion. In today's video, which has been a long time coming, I'm going to be looking at what I think is one of the biggest issues. Is there a contradiction between rules H3, 74 and 76? Rule H3 is a rule for drivers and motorcyclists, and it states, you should not cut across a cyclist, horse riders or horse-drawn vehicles going ahead when you are turning into or out of a junction, or changing direction or lane, just as you would not turn across the path of another motor vehicle. This applies whether they are using a cycle lane, a cycle track or riding ahead on the road, and you should give way to them. Do not turn at a junction if to do so would cause a cyclist, horse rider or horse-drawn vehicle going straight ahead to stop or swerve. You should stop and wait for a safe gap in the flow of the cyclists if necessary. This includes when cyclists are approaching, passing or moving off from a junction, moving past or waiting alongside stationary or slow-moving traffic, travelling around a roundabout. Simply, you should wait for the cyclist to pass the junction before turning. This also applies if there is a cycle lane or cycle track and if you are turning right or left into the junction. To have a look at this rule in more detail, I've got some footage that demonstrates this perfectly. This footage has been sent in by one of my viewers who drives a Tesla, so we've got some front, side and rear footage to watch. The footage is from London, and I'm not sure whether there's any other city in the UK that something like this would happen on a regular basis. Firstly though, I'd like you to watch the black Mercedes in front. They slightly move to the left hand side, but they should really give way to the lady on the bike. But she adjusts her speed and holds back and everyone's allowed to flow. But that wasn't following the rules, even though I think it was a good outcome. As my viewer waits at the lights, we can now see a number of cyclists approaching from the back. My viewer wants to turn left, and all of these cyclists aren't signalling, so they're more than likely going ahead. So what should go on here? My viewer's signalling left. Should the cyclist come past or should my viewer hold back and let the cyclist go? But there's many more approaching now. This could take a while. Whenever you're in this situation, keep constantly watching in your mirrors so you know who's exactly around and what you'll probably have to do. Do the cyclists going ahead have priority, or should they wait for you because you've got a left signal on? Well, this is what I'm going to be clarifying later on in the video. To most people, it's common sense. What would you do here? Would you expect the cyclist to wait for you, or would you let them go? Don't forget the pedestrians will also get their chance to cross the road. But after this sequence is finished, it's probably going to be our lights changing again. What's happening down the left side? It's absolutely chocker. And when the lights do change, my viewer makes a good decision. They move forward to show their intentions. And now it's time to watch carefully and read what people are communicating. That one's holding back. That's the time to go. Good job. Now let's have a look at the first part of Rule 74, where you might notice what seems to be a contradiction. Rules 59 to 82 are for cyclists. Rule 74, turning. When approaching a junction on the left, watch out for vehicles turning in front of you, out or into the side road. If you intend to turn left, check first for other cyclists or motorcyclists before signalling. Do not ride on the inside of vehicles signalling or slowing down to turn left. So Rule 74 says do not ride on the inside of vehicles signalling or slowing down to turn left. However, Rule H3 states you should wait for the cyclist to pass the junction before turning. So which is it? This clip's an absolute classic. The cyclist wants to go straight on, but there's a vehicle up ahead that wishes to turn left who has arrived at the junction first. Both assume priority, and then we get this mess. I'm not sure whether the BMW driver actually saw the cyclist though. Neither road user followed the advice that's set out in the highway code. It's nice to see my viewer giving way to the pedestrians properly, like the red van should have done. Then, after all this, Rule 76 tells the cyclist they have priority in this situation. Rule 76, going straight ahead. If you're going straight ahead at a junction, you have priority over traffic waiting to turn into or out of the side road, unless road signs or markings indicate otherwise. Check that you can proceed safely, particularly when approaching junctions on the left alongside stationary or slow-moving traffic. Watch out for drivers intending to turn across your path. Remember, the driver ahead may not be able to see you, so bear in mind your speed and position in the road. So let's try and make some heads and tails of this. For me, there is no contradiction whatsoever. The problem lies with people's interpretation of specific parts without looking at the bigger picture. For example, the motorists will only look at Rule 74 and think that cyclists are in the wrong because they're riding on the inside of vehicles signalling or slowing down to turn left. This rule on its own encourages the motorist to think by getting in front with a signal means that they can go first, but that's not the case. Cyclists that look at the first part of Rule 76 may continue recklessly just because they've got priority in this situation, yet they ignore the very next sentence which advises them to check if they can proceed safely, even though that some drivers may intend to turn across their path. I'm forever saying priority is given, not taken, and this applies in all situations.
Why? Hey! Signal!
People assuming they have outright priority and just thinking about themselves is the biggest issue here, and all classes of road users are equally to blame. Even when you have priority, there are occasions where you're better off letting others go first, but this doesn't enter into some people's minds. If we think back to the first clip we saw, it's unreasonable to expect all the traffic consistently to wait for the streams of cyclists passing on the left side. This causes more congestion and increases pollution for everyone. After my viewer has had a little movement, one of the cyclists sensibly holds back and allows the turn to take place, even though the cyclist did have priority. Now have a look at this clip from one of my viewers who was featured many times on the channel for their good road skills. Without doubt, this driver should give way to my viewer, but my viewer sorts it easily. My viewer follows the rules in the highway code, the motorist doesn't. This is now a non-event, but it's all down to the cyclist, not the motorist. So, in summary, the rules in the highway code are there to try and keep everyone safe. They tell the motorist to give way to the cyclists who wish to proceed ahead, but they also tell the cyclist not to proceed if there's a risk that one of the motorists could turn across their path. This is not a contradiction. As usual, it's the human element that's the problem, being selective about the parts of the rule that they wish to follow. Keep safe out there, and I hope to see you soon.
Signal!